I hope I'm in the picture.
Aha, ja, komm da ein bisschen rüber.
Cool. Yeah. It's 7 o'clock, so we started. And I hope English is okay for everybody here. Cool. Good. And I'm really happy to welcome Bina and Ropunawa here for all these, at least two approaches how to work with humans and ropes and give them experiences. And I can just say that I had a very deep experience I never forget in one of your workshops. And it was a really opener for myself into a new kind of like give myself in, lose myself, and at the same time to be really held. And it was beautiful. So yeah. And with Ropunawa we have somebody here who is in Kinbaku, so I guess in the next few minutes you will know more about Kinbaku and Shibari and Japan and cultures and whatever there is. So I wonder why the Japanese one day decided to tie up people and why.
I think we will explore these questions as well, so
Cool.
it's not a problem.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I leave the stage up to you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Yes,
the audience?
sure. Yeah, some of you guys I already know. So my name is Bina, and maybe a bit different to you. My entry point to Shibari came through Tantra, or not exactly through Tantra, but it was quite, combined somehow. I don't know how much I already want to dive into that. I guess, Or
so
maybe you want to introduce yourself, just very briefly.
So my name is Fabian, also known as Ropunawa, and I have a studio in Basel, which I call Tying with Friends. I went into Shibari. I think just let's continue talking about. So basically, how I started to do Shibari. I was just a very lonely person, and I really enjoyed hentais. Hentais are Japanese mangas, but in a very, let's say, it's very perverted. So like the porn version of a cute anime. And I consumed that a lot as a child. And there was a lot of girls tied up. So I already was fascinated and drawn to this BDSM tying aspect. And then I was in Australia, and I saw for my first time a performance. I was 21 back then, and actually my first thought was like, because it was an older Japanese guy tying a younger girl, and my first thought was back then, I was like, I want that too one day. And I was lucky. In Switzerland we already had the Seilschaften, the Secret 56, and they already practice a certain way of Shibari, and I entered there. That was actually my first step, like almost 15 years ago. Yeah.
So your first encounter was more in a workshop setting, or?
The real encounter was a performance.
Yeah, but
And
like when
then-
you first like had ropes in your
Yes,
hand or on your
yes,
body.
was kind of directly in a workshop setting.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And for you?
Yeah, for me it was quite a different experience. I was introduced to it by a lover in India. Yeah, we were more on the tantric path, so it was more about sensuality, and we were already physically intimate with each other. So it's a very, very different setting to what or how I practice Shibari nowadays. It was really this classical, he would blindfold me and he tied me up, and then we had a beautiful lovemaking. And there it really fascinated me somehow. It was a really beautiful and profound experience to me, to somehow be so vulnerable in the ropes, because you completely give up control. I was blindfolded, I had no idea what was going on, but to feel so safe and held and nurtured somehow. And then already the next day I was like, okay, teach me how to do this. It's nice to receive, but I also want to somehow being able to tie other people, to give them the same experience. And in the beginning I thought it always had to be combined somehow with sexuality or sensuality, but then later that viewpoint changed a lot. So now I see a lot more possibilities with Shibari that doesn't necessarily have to be connected with that.
Yeah, I think we can also define the terms. Like Shibari just means like to bind, and we like to, in the West, we always want to have for everything a word. We want to define everything. In Japan, they don't really do a big difference between Shibari and Kinbaku. If I would talk to a Japanese rigger and would say like, hey, could we separate those words? Let's say we are very into art, or maybe there's some tantra people who would like to use some of the rope techniques to enhance maybe more of their practice. So, but they are like, no, it's the same. For them, it's the same. And that's the reason, because it's nowadays, maybe I can make a short history class if you want.
Yes, please, I think they're up for it.
So Shibari in general comes from Hojo Jutsu, which is basically a police or military martial art. And it was used from the samurai time because they didn't have enough iron. In Japan had no iron. They had no own iron to get. They were reliable. They had to rely on the other people from China, and so to get this stuff. So they used just hemp rope, a lot of hemp. They had a lot of hemp there, so that's what they used, and maybe bamboo. But nevertheless, so they needed to have something to capture people and bring them kind of safe from A to B. Nowadays we say like, oh, they were so honorable and they wanted to make it very, very safe, and it was really important that they are be safe, go to point A to B. But in most of the thing it was just used for criminals or public shaming maybe sometimes, and then there it was not so important if someone had injuries or not. We say nowadays, yeah, we are all about safety, but back then, even if they maybe were aware of it, it was very clear that the person was not allowed to escape. And nowadays how we practice Shibari or Kinbaku is, if you really want, you could get out in a way. Most of the time, not every time, but most of the time. Yeah, it depends. And then, Second World War, the Japanese were very cruel at that time, and then they lost the war, and then it was actually the West, the Americans and the people which already were into bondage and made like sexual practice with it, brought the idea to the Japanese to say like, hey, you all do those fancy stuff, we kind of like it, here's some money, tie up this woman, I want to have sex with him. So basically, and there was one guy in Japan which was really into this, had a very twisted mind, and then it just went into the 1950s, more into the pornographic scene. And it's since then, it's still there. There's rarely famous riggers in Japan which do not make porn. So it comes from porn, basically. And then the West. We are the European, which we think like, oh, we can do art and stuff like this, which is true. But I think it really divided our scene, because some of us is like, hey, rope is very erotical, and then we have maybe coming to our jam sometimes a person which is coming from a completely different community, and they said like, oh, it's like yoga. And then they see how we tie, and then they are like kind of maybe shocked. I didn't thought it can be so sexual. And I was like, but this is Shibari Kinbaku. That's how we know it from Japan. This is how we like to transfer that in our community. And I think to explain to people, I think in Japan it's still very narrow, and in Europe is very wide open. Basically almost two communities, one which is not very sexual oriented, and the other one which is still wants to do the old dirty BDSM stuff. Yeah.
I would even say there's maybe more than just two groups. I feel like there's a lot of different subgroups by now. I mean, there's even one stream that doesn't even tie up people, but more objects, big rocks and trees in nature, and
like
it's
this.
more, or tables, voila. Or also where I come from, where it's more about, using these polarities that we have from Tantra, Shiva, Shakti, masculine, feminine, yin, yang, and we're kind of using that with the ropes, or so I feel like there's a lot of subcultures.
Yeah, but I think in general it's for all the same. Even if it's not sexual, even if it's used now by Tantra, it's two people come together, and we use a material which we can, like the rope, which enhanced our possibility to hug a person, or to expose a person, or to play with a person. And I think for me it's just, my biggest difficulty I have is kind of because the Japanese are very generous how to use those terms, that I feel like I have to explain to so many people that nowadays in Europe, what we do is there's so many things. It's not Shibari anymore. In general, what it is still in Japan, and even if it in Japan is sometimes a lot of things about the mindset, because it's not like I tie you up and have sex. That's very Western oriented. In Japan, it's more like I tie you and I give you and try to read your body language, or want to find out your darkest desires and see how can I play with your mindset without actually to having to actually even to have to undress you, but try to play with the mind. And that's more that we use the term Kinbaku for that a bit. Yeah,
where it's more about these emotional connections or twists.
I would say so. I also would really say that it's really a difficult topic, because I think Shibari is a great thing. It's something which helped a lot of people. It helped me in general. I was very insecure young
that's
man.
something what I'm
Yes.
curious about. Like,
So
what did it, or what does it give you, or why
it
do you
gave
do
me
it?
a lot of self-confidence to do something to a person which I would think is still not very mainstream or is still not really accepted in our society, and then to see how happy they are. I mean, I also experienced stuff with people I tied which I think I'm not proud of, mostly because I was young and I was just interested to explore that, and I wanted to give everything I had. And then I saw almost marriages break apart, or like giving up their boyfriends, or just changing their entire lives. I had that all, and I think like it's quite powerful also when someone really knows how to tie and knows all those little tricks, because to be generally honest, I think to tie someone is also to manipulate someone, because we play with the emotions, we play with the dopamine, with all those in our bodies hormones we have, we play with it, and we can kind of manipulate the feeling where it can go. So lust, pain, like all those kind of things. And if we find out, you really like to be this, I think I can say a little bit more profound word, like you're a little slut here, so I think, and you see the reaction, finally someone noticed this, that I have this in me. They are like just butter in your hand, and I think it's quite a big responsibility for me as a teacher to explain that to people, and also to make aware, because I don't want to generate a new generation of people which want to exploit that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part, or I feel like it's also so much about the intention of why do you tie, because as you mentioned before, there's a huge influence that we can have as riggers on the people that we tie. And I mean, we can influence that in so many different directions. Like on one hand, I feel like it can be super nurturing or empowering, or that you can actually give a lot of value to a person, or also like that a person finally feels completely seen, that a person has the full focus on them. Like it can be a lot of positive things can happen from this. But also, the line is also very fine where we are so much in power, where we can really direct or navigate their emotions, or we can bring people to do things that maybe if you start a Shibari session like 2 hours before, they would never ever think they would go so far. So it's a very fine line somehow. And for me personally, or also what I want to transmit, I mean, also I think we teach quite differently, because in my workshops and retreats, it's mostly combined with Tantra, where the approach is, we also explore things with kink, and we're, a little bit, we twist some things, but generally the Tantric approach, it's a lot about transparency and, less about playing games. Whereas, maybe traditionally with Shibari you can, kind of it's more about this manipulation. And for me, I feel like it's very important before you start a session to question, what is my intention? Why am I doing this? Is this session for me as a rigger? Do I get pleasure out of this to tie up this person? Is it about this power dynamic that I want to explore? Is this session a service for the person being tied? Is it a session of healing, empowerment, of nurturing? But to somehow be clear of why we're doing this.
It's not different. We also communicate before we tie with new people. I'm just saying where it comes from and how malicious it could be used. I mean, there is no. I see someone for for example, I can make a good example. At the moment that the tying with friends is kind of like this. If we have someone new, I usually tell the person, you watch. The whole evening.
Yeah.
No, you don't get tied. You watch. Someone approach you, you decline, you just try to watch. Just see all those different energies, how they play with each other. And then it will not run away. Then you come next time and then maybe something happen. And then usually it's not with me, then it's with someone else. And I also think because it's people have to really be educated what is happening. So when what you said, like, are we talking about? That's the same thing here as well. You would not tie with someone, you would not go on a date, except for me, if someone asks me for a session, in a booking session, for example, then I can still decide I want, yes or no, but then it's maybe the money, which I feel like is the balance I have. If I tie someone privately, then I feel like, okay, what do I get out of it? Yeah. That's very important. But we do that the same. Probably everyone is doing it a little bit different. It's not so in a very clear format how you negotiate that thing. But another interesting question is for me to you is how many people fall in love with you?
Oof, that's a very good question. I just had a session before coming here. I think that was another check. Yeah, it's a difficult one because when you're tied in ropes, I mean, of course, it can also go the complete opposite, that someone just completely hates you. Although I feel like even when there can still be a falling in love, but it is a difficult one because I feel like in a rope session there is a lot of intimacy exchanged. It doesn't have to be sexual or erotic at all, but somehow there's or at least what I aim for, what is interesting to me in a session is if there is a vulnerability and openness, more kind of like a connection where we connect on I don't know, it sounds so big, soul level, but we somehow connect. And I feel like for a lot of people, or especially in the world where we live in, intimacy is not really a thing that happens in a daily basis. We just rush to work and we're super caught up in our busy lives, or even in intimate relationships, in partnerships, I feel like a lot of times intimacy or real intimacy is actually missing. And I feel like a lot of times when people then come to a session and they actually encounter someone that really sees them and they are brave enough to open. And I feel like this sometimes people can confuse with the feeling of falling in love. Because probably it is not, I mean, what is falling in love? It's a very big term. But I feel like a lot of people might confuse this safety and vulnerability with a stranger, that this might be falling in love.
Yeah, because you play, as we said, with dopamine and adrenaline, and there is this wonderful saying, if you have, I love to bring that example, it's maybe old school, but it's also one of my favorite, is there is a scientific, they made a test, how many people fall in love with each other in extreme environment situation or having this feeling. And funny is that if you meet a person in a bar and you think like, oh, this is a match, and you go home and have sex, there's those hookups, let's say, they have a bigger chance to be for a long-term relationship. So because it's more normal, it's just a little bit, if there is not too much alcohol involved. But if it's a normal environment, you go to a cinema together and you think like you have some common ground, that's at the better, it's a better ground for a long-term relationship. But if you kind of in an extreme situation, let's say you are in the English word is so hard. The hanging bridge, like a hanging bridge over a creek, and the man is already, one person is already standing on the safe ground, but the other person is on this very scary hanging bridge, and it's shaking and the wind is blowing, and the other one is like, hey, you made it, you will made it, no worries, I'm here, just go step by step. If you are in this kind of extreme environment, the percentage of those couples fall much faster in love, but the relationship doesn't hold so long because you don't know each other. And that's just the same thing a little bit with, I think, encountering those extreme things with rope, because there is always a sensation, or it's not like, I would say it's more extreme as if I would receive, and I received some Tantra sessions, and they were pleasant, and I enjoyed them a lot, but to be tied, there is constant something going, struggling, being with you the whole time. And if you go more extreme with tying, like if you go in suspensions, the body is automatically going in, oh, I need to survive this, I need to survive this, even if it's not painful. It's an environment which are not common and scary. And through that, a lot of people could also fall in love. Or as you say, I've been seen. But what means to be seen? Just to be a little bit more aware, because as you said, our society, everything is so fast. And the same thing goes in Japan. People who are getting tied are bankers, are people high in the society which have a lot of stress, and they just want to have a moment which they are not themselves. And we like to say it's like a theater play. So you meet for 2 hours, as would you go together watching a movie. You're excited to watch this movie together, you watch this movie together, and maybe afterwards you talk a little bit about this movie, how it was, but then you go separate ways again. And in Japan it's just the same. You meet in a bar, and then you tie, and there is not even aftercare so much, so maybe it changed a bit because they also learn a lot from us. But when I started, there was, and then they tied, she cried, and then when he was finished, folded his robe, went again to his gin or his beer, and she was still there alone. Put on her dress, and I was sitting there and was like, wow, this is intense to watch, but that's so normal. That's so normal there. Yeah. And if I would ask it, hey, do you need something, they would just say like, no, so good, I'm happy. Because they don't know better, or it's just their culture. And from this culture it comes. So I find it very interesting how we in Europe evolved it. I would say evolving, because as you said, like it's the mere subclasses, yes, but I generally say the scene will first divide in two. The underground scene, which will be still very sex oriented and dirty, and then everything else, which I would say is very similar to pole dance, which started as a stripper thing for nightclubs, and now children are doing it, and it's just accepted. Not children. I think I saw classes for 16-year-old people, but they are children. So I think.
I mean, I guess it's just a very good full body workout. I mean, if you want to do pole dance, you need quite some so
yeah. But it comes from a different spot. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
Please. We're talking also about sexual energies within that. And did you also sometimes experience that there is something healing in there? That like if somebody comes with a sexual theme, Maybe if it's the surrender theme, or even a trauma, something there to really give in. Do you experience that sometimes, that there is a healing effect in?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I feel like I want to take this very cautiously, because I wouldn't want to just put there a sentence, Shibari is for sexual healing. It can be, could also be exactly the opposite, but in the past, for example, I have worked a lot with women that have suffered sexual abuse. And for example, for them, it was, and at the same time, I want to clarify that, for example, me, I don't say that I'm a therapist, or, there's not like a licensed thing. But what I can say from the experiences that I've had with these women is that, like a lot of times there's a lot of blockages or a lot of shields they put around them, because whenever they were vulnerable or in their sexual energy, that would somehow be abused or just, taken advantage of. And for them, it was actually a really beautiful and healing experience to be completely tied in ropes. So you're completely vulnerable, like you can't escape. And then to be in this state of vulnerability, but to be safe, that someone is there that respects your boundaries and that is nurturing and caring. And for them, it was actually really an opening experience to allow themselves to release control. Because usually what happens when we have a trauma, we contract, we cleanse, we don't dare to open up again, we close. And for them, what they shared with me after was that it really helped them to trust again, to trust their own bodies, that they're safe in their bodies, to trust another human that ties them up, but also somehow to trust life. Because very often when these traumatic things happen, we lose faith and trust in life as a whole. So I do see that it can have very healing potential, and at the same time also it really depends on the setting, on the intention of both people, or also maybe for another person it could even be re-traumatizing to be, maybe if you're claustrophobic. So I wouldn't say it's a medicine for everybody, but there's a huge potential that I see, and that in specific sessions, or also with I also had some experiences with men that, for example, were super stuck in their sexual energy, or were really afraid, or felt there was a lot of pressure. I feel like men, they often feel this feeling of I have to perform and I have to be strong and aroused all the time. But then to actually realize like, oh wow, I can be like in a setting where in my mind, like this is kind of like a super sexy pornographic vibe and I should be like super on right now. But then to realize like, oh wow, I can just exist and be, and there's no pressure of me doing anything, and I could just release and let go. So I feel like there's a lot of ways how Shibari can be very healing.
I think there is probably the biggest judgment of my side, because I, with my partner, which is a psychotherapist, we were actually working for 4 years with other people in the more scientific field, because we thought like, how can we use Shibari in a therapeutic setting? And it is, frankly, for as you say, some people will have an experience for themselves which will help them to gain trust again. But unfortunately, I experienced a lot of self-claimed Shibari healers in the scene which are just exploiting this topic in all the directions. And that makes it really hard for me to accept it, the term that we should use it, because there's still so much like exploiting as I say. So what we figured out was like we would need to have a setting on set attires, but also always a third person in the same room is like as a watcher to document everything. And also I will never try someone private who comes to me and says like, I had a rape experience, can you please help me? My first question is like, do you get help from someone professional? And if they say yes, and if true, then I feel more comfortable to tie with that person, because I think they are also reasonable to take other necessary steps. I don't think it's because a lot of people using BDSM and Shibari as an escape mechanism for the struggles they have. And it's so easy to get addicted to this so fast. So for me, I know that it is really a helpful thing. I would not waste 4 years of my life to try out to figure it out, to how to make that in a therapeutic setting, but it's really complicated. I think there is always good people, and for some people it's really like, okay, you come to me, I really want to look at this, and even if you get hard, no, I will not touch you. It's just about this experience. But there's so many people who are just like, oh, I can heal you with now you need to embrace, now you're ready for for my piece.
Yeah, I think we also spoke about this where there's very similar dynamics also in the world of Tantra, where a lot of gurus are, I'm gonna fuck you to enlightenment type of thing. So yeah, I think it's important to be very cautious with, is a session really for the client, or does the person actually get something out?
And now I will say something which is really harsh, but I don't know anyone who is coming only from the rope scene which started doing Shibari healing. Everyone agrees I don't know everyone, but everyone who started with Shibari healing has usually a more Tantra background or a different one. And then I'm just like, it feels like the problem comes from there for me. Because I'm open for changes. I'm really happy. I'm happy of people are helped, and I'm happy because what I said in the beginning, I mean it. And like for me, tying someone and then afterwards they cry in my arms and they say like, I never experienced something such beautiful as this before, meant a lot to me. But also I felt like, oh, what happens now? There's also a lot of situation which people come to me and it's just like, you tied me last week and now I really don't know where to get that. So kind of, this experience was so crazy and so cool and I felt so understand and but where can I get that except from you? And then, what do I do then? Because then I know, look, we have other people which are also still good and getting better and better, but I understand that this has a lot with power, and I don't want to have this power. I don't want to have too many, let's say, female clients coming to me and say like, I experienced those and those, because I know it's so easy to make something wrong, and I also don't have a proper background for that. For like traumas, no, I have no idea, not much. Only the basics, and that's not enough. I also unfortunately also don't know a psychotherapist or a psychologist which is practicing that and using Shibari as a method to help. I don't know, because I guess all those people who study that decided, no, I think that's too close to be with my client, because you are getting very close. And I understand that it can help, but I also see so many red flags about it, which scares me. That's the general thing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's a very fine line also between healing and re-traumatizing, because also the ropes, it can also trigger, like if there was, let's say, a situation of abuse, if you could physically not move, if you were restrained, that could also kind of bring these memories up. And I feel like it's really a fine tuning. Also, sometimes it can be helpful to maybe relive a certain scene again, to then feel like, okay, no, this is safe, I can go through it and so on. But the line I find is very fine between healing, re-traumatizing. So I feel like it can be like as you say, maybe a complementary thing. If someone is already in therapy, they know themselves well, and you really take things slow. But I find it quite a delicate topic, or also with the power dynamic, right? I mean, even if you just have verbal psychotherapy, I think it's a very common thing that clients fall in love with their therapists. And I feel like if you also involve the body contact, maybe some sensuality, there is somehow a power dynamic that is created.
So it's important to keep these things apart. So there is the session with the ropes, there is your experience, and there is my intention. And not to mix them, as I understand.
Or if you consciously decide to mix certain things, it needs to be very transparent on all of the sides, and everybody needs to consent to what is happening.
I know a girl which she's not so active in the scene anymore, but she toured with a famous Japanese rigger, and she decided to do this because she was claustrophobic. And she said, like, I want to challenge my fear of claustrophobics, and because she felt always when she was tight a little bit claustrophobic, and that helped her a lot. But also no one in the, I would say, right mind, but no therapist would say like, you should do this because of that could help, maybe everything else didn't help. This is more because it's like this, just for some people to heal themselves, they need confrontation. But a lot of people, this doesn't work. But she decided herself as a last step, I want to try this. Maybe this helps. It cannot get worse. So, but this is so little, so small examples. You also said that it's an open discussion, so people can also always ask questions, just to remind people to do that.
And who feels like bringing a question in online is also invited.
Great. Yes.
I'm really wondering what situation are you confronted with rope help? So when speaking about the dangers or even psychological situations that come up in combination with rope.
Like the community thing, rope help, like which we have in Switzerland, which people can address if there's a problem. There's a website, ropehelp.ch, and usually what comes is usually medical, like nerve issues. I think there's still a lot of shame stuff when it's about, I went into this, but I feel re-traumatized or something like that, or I've had a bad experience. And for those cases, we have a few, but I think the dark numbers is a little bit bigger. Sorry, it's a little bit bigger. So your question was more like if it gets addressed, or if it's, or what is still at something else?
Is there a lot of, let's say, psychological parts or psychological situation people?
It's mostly physical.
Physical.
Yeah, mostly people come because of, I have this nerve issue, I have this drop hand, what can I do? I heard that helps. We had a few stuff like, I feel not well, I feel didn't understand after the session, I felt not hold enough. That can rarely happen, but it's not so crazy. It's like maybe 1 email per month or 6 weeks. I think that's okay. Yeah.
And maybe that's also because usually in a rope session you kind of say, everything's consensual and you technically should have a check-in. And I can also imagine that because on paper everything should have been fine and you have consented to everything, that sometimes there might also be a little bit of this victim shaming of like, but you should have said something, or you should have asked for help. So I think that might also contribute to people.
Yeah,
maybe.
and also a lot of people don't know about rope help.
Yeah.
It's also something they don't know where to reach out. When you meet someone online or at a jam and then you type privately, there can be risks, but it's very, very unlikely that something happens in our community because everyone speaks about it. And if you make a mistake, I think everyone knows very soon. What I find also interesting is like, where did you get, like you said, your ex-lover taught you a bit. What else? Where did you get your inspiration? Where did you learn?
Wow,
What did you find for you?
All over the place. So it started in India, and then he taught me quite a lot. And then in Bali and Kopangan, there were a few very inspiring teachers, and then but also people from the States, and then I met this Israeli couple that really inspired me, and then I went to live with them. I mean, we traveled together, also in Southeast Asia, but then I went for a month to Israel, and we had like a full immersion. So for me, I don't feel like I have. A lot of people, they have this very clear lineage of, I trained with this master and this is my only line. But for me, I feel like I'm fusing a lot of knowledge from a lot of different teachers, and also I blend it very much with tantric practices, with kundalini, with breath work. So I feel like for me it's it's more a combination of different tools that I use, and I put them together in the way how I feel like it serves me or my clients best. I'm curious about you.
I had some masters, to say so, but I was never happy with their ideas. Like, I don't want to say anything bad about them because I'm very thankful. And so there is also nothing bad. They had their principles and they wanted to follow this. And for me, in the beginning, I had the style which was very common in Switzerland. It was Osada Ryu, that is like a German guy which went to Japan and made actually a system out of this mess. Thanks to him, he brought it back to Europe because he made a school out of it with steps you had to follow, and it was so German, everyone in the West loved it. The Japanese didn't like it so much, to be honest. But it was a very legit thing. But for me, back in the days, like 15 years ago, it was not emotional love. It was very technical, focused. So I broke out of it, explored more in Europe, and those people, they were already someone which combined rope with dancing, with tango. That was one of the best things I experienced back then from Nicolas Yoroi. He was a crazy man, but he really combined Aikido and dancing with rope. So it was fascinating to watch, to tie someone while moving and with minimalistic rope approaches. But that also was not enough for me, and then I saw Naka, which is very known for his Semenava style. Semenava means like slow, torture, slow, kind of the slow way of tying, but you want to create a scene which you feel tortured, but not in a very bad pain, like in this slow, I'm burning out pain. So you say a perfect 7-hour session is when in the end the model says, I can't anymore, let me down, but you never heard before anything like, ow, it hurts. So it's everything very slow. You never do something hard. It's a slow build-up. And there I was in Japan for quite a few times, every year, and then Corona came, which threw me out a little bit. But what I wanted to say is like I just also grabbed what I liked, but I also honored those things which I liked, and suddenly I had my own thing and my own style.
What is your own thing and your own style?
As I would say, the word would be rope fusion. It's just when you talk with other people which are very in the scene, would probably say, oh, Fabian is the guy which just is able to mix the styles together and it works. I don't think it's rocket science, but for other people they need a very clear lineage to understand how a rope works. But for me it's very clear and also simple that I think it's a little bit, I can say that's the simplest way. Everything is just loops, and you just need to understand how to combine those loops. And then it's probably the most artistic thing I can say for me, but it is for me very easy. It's actually like breathing. To tie someone doesn't cost me much energy if it's only technical. If I have to put my heart into it and a lot of energy with my touch and with my breathing and with the mindset I want to create, because sometimes it's rarely that I want to tie like on eye levels. I would like to, I'm here and the person who is tied is here. But about the spiral dynamics, I also need to create a setting for that. And that is, maybe that can cost me energy. But the tying itself, just doing something with rope, feels very natural for me. So there if I would tell everything where I come from, it would be too much. It was just too much. I think I invested money-wise of teachings because I always paid usually, except then when people thought like, okay, we are now friends. It's a little bit different maybe, but in general I paid for everything, and I guess I paid at least 2 cars already just for the education for the ropes. And nowadays I'm very happy that I have very, very good students and people which are very passionate, and I also okay that everything goes a little bit slower, because I really think the fundamental knowledge is so important, and everyone is rushing to suspension. And it's I find it crazy, but I also understand, because most of the picture we see online is in the suspension.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
it looks most exciting somehow, or most challenging.
I think the picture is a good example about the perception what we have. So if you see a picture, you think like, oh wow, she looks so serene. But actually she's almost dying inside. And
it's like
and then all those lines which go up in all the direction, and you see
like perfectly,
neat,
like everything nice and neat.
And then
doesn't happen in a session.
And then you think, it actually can. It just depends what way you tie. So if you more have a 7-hour session, it will always look like this, because it's a part of it. But what I wanted to say is like most that you see a picture and it gives you an emotion, but we are creating the picture and tricking you to have this emotion. A lot of things.
Never thought about this,
because
but yes.
there's a famous picture about a girl is kneeling on the floor and have those 4 brutal big stones of her knees, and she's almost crying, sweat a lot, and is just in a gote and just has those stones on her knees. Actually, it's just styroboard painted in stone, and she got with water and a little bit oil mixture sprayed on, so it looks very sweaty. And that's all. And then I asked this Japanese riggers, like, why? And he's like, I don't want to hurt them. I need to work. The next scene is tomorrow. The next movie is tomorrow. They have to function. So we face. So what I found really, really funny is like this board. You saw it maybe? People kneeling on it. It looks like little triangles. It's known in the scene as ishitaki, but it doesn't matter if it's the right term. It's used for washing. But they also used it now for torture, and everyone in Europe made it pointy, and everyone had maybe some accidents like an infection on the knees, and then the Japanese is like, you only let the front pointy, everything else you make it smooth. And I'm just like, okay, good. He comes from a porn moving setting, which you want to work on the next time with those models because they experience already so much pain. And we in our free time just like have the most intense sessions, and then you're for a week done. So I think it's really funny that the picture show you sometimes a fake story, but also sometimes it's real. But then I think it's just funny to know that, actually.
I mean, what I actually find amazing about these super beautiful pictures is that a lot of people, they come to my workshops and retreats because they're like, I saw pictures and it looked so amazing. And then they come and they think they're gonna, be all crazy suspended and crazy backbends and things. But then what they actually discover is that it's so much more about emotions, about letting go. It's about, or if they learn to tie, it's about taking up conscious leadership. That it's so much more. It's about, kind of like a huge personal development journey, which obviously on the picture you don't see. But then they come with this expectation of, I'm just gonna hang, and then they actually realize there's so much more to it. So I think somehow the pictures are actually nice because it attracts people. But yeah, as you say, it's maybe very.
And then again, then it's a term thing, because it's like really when people say like Shibari, and when you talk with the Japanese people, they are not fan of the tantristic approach. They are not at the moment, not because probably they just don't get it how some of people like to have it. But the Japanese, I saw it once live. There is a very good teacher, Tatiana. She's a Ukraine girl, and she's also often in Thailand and so on. So she's mixing that, and she's really good also in suspension. And I was once with her in a bar, and it was lovely to see her tying this friend of her, and it was a lot of breathing exercise, like just this thing what they like to do, and the Japanese were like. They were not amused, and I was sitting there, I was like, no, we are here in a Japanese place, please behave. But that's maybe me as a Swiss person, which I want to adjust. Yeah.
Good. It's 8 o'clock. The hour is almost over, and I would like to, I don't want to break it now just like that. I would like to give a question to both of you. When you did the session and you feel that the session was really beautiful or deep or touching, so what touches you in your heart the most when you come out of a really beautiful session? What is there? What moves you? And what is the nourishment for your passion to go on with that?
Professionally or private?
Private.
Okay. Professionally would be easy. Money. No. No. I have to say it can be, because private, I think it's this crazy trust you become from someone, and then I'm just like, I feel like, yeah, we didn't talk in the session much or at all, and they said like, I felt so understand. I felt understand. It's crazy how you felt my needs, and even if you felt it, you addressed it, but you didn't made it. Like, for example, someone gets horny, and then I would just tell them, and it's like time, you will get horny from that, for this, and then it's like, oh my God, he noticed, or you like this little pain here, exactly here, or and that they felt like that I read them like an open book, but it's just like body language reading for me. This is always a good sign for me, and it gives me a lot. It gives me this self-confidence. I'm good at something which most of the people are not, or not even, and that I touch someone in a way, not physically, emotionally maybe, which I know not many people will. And this is actually a very egoistic approach, but it's that what gives me the energy that I still like to tie. I want to be special, I want to feel special. Okay. And I can achieve that through time. I think that's something, that's the most honest way I can say it. And for you?
That was honest, yes.
Yeah, some things have resonated with me. Of course, there's probably this more selfish gratification of, oh yeah, I'm really good at something, and the person likes it. But for me, what is really interesting in a session is actually that things are completely unpredictable, that you cannot fully plan a session, or whenever I start a session, I have no idea what ties I'm going to do, what emotions will arise. And for me, what somehow gives me this joy or pleasure is to kind of jump into the unknown with another person and see what magic unfolds. And also similarly to what you say, I think for me, like, it gives me a lot to receive the full trust from someone. I mean, in a private setting, it's probably someone that I already know since a very long time. But also for me, it feels very beautiful to receive the trust of a stranger, to have someone completely open up and dissolve in your hands. And somehow to also give that person this ability to trust again, because maybe that's a bit different of our approaches. Or so for me, when I tie, not all of the times, but very often when it's more in a tantric way, if I'm in the giving position, I mean, we have these polarities, Shiva Shakti. If I'm more in this Shiva position of I'm giving this session to you, I'm very much in this serving, and for me it gives a lot of gratification somehow if I see that something is moved within a person, if I can hold the space for a person where, I don't know, maybe a blockage is released, or they become somehow more emotionally free inside, or that there's a shift inside them. And I think this is for me very pleasurable to see that something shifts in another person.
Is that not the same? It's exactly the same. You get gratification because you achieve something which not many will.
Yeah, probably.
Because I
Yeah,
don't believe in I giving without anything receiving. But this is also different. It's because of Tantra, because I have not much to do with Tantra. But I think also that when I go in a session, what I get out of it is not a relationship. It's not a blowjob. It's not even money. It's this thing I did something that not many could do, and she's thankful for it. Maybe it makes me automatically special. This feeling I have, and with this feeling I'm already happy, because what you said was like how I talked like 5 years ago. I don't need anything. I just want to give. It's amazing it sounds very similar what I said in the past.
Yeah, and I think there's some nuances. I totally agree that on one hand there's for sure this thing of like, oh yes, I as a person am doing something which I really like. But then also I think for me it's sometimes even more on the transpersonal, where it's not so much about the you and the me, but it's more about, I don't want to make it too big and spiritual, but somehow that we together in this session lift something up to a higher consciousness. If maybe there was a blockage or a trauma or something that wasn't conscious yet, but then if we bring these things to consciousness, this somehow gives me gratification. And I'm not sure if it's important that it's me that is facilitating this, or if it just makes me happy that something's happening. I'm not sure.
What I hear about it, you can say if I'm right or not, is a certain special level of connection.
This for sure, yeah.
Which is not a kind of a connection which does not happen just like on the street or in a bar or whatever.
No.
Yeah, I mean...
Cannot. Because you're skipping like a lot of dates. When
you skip the small talk.
You're skipping the small talk, you're skipping the coffee, the movie thing. You go straight very close and personal.
And also I feel like for me the ropes or tantra or breathwork, a lot of these things, I feel like it's just we're using tools. I mean, if I'm using a rope, it is just an excuse somehow to get more intimate with another person or to trigger something inside. I could also, maybe I could use a spoon for it, no?
You mean this one?
Exactly this one. Exactly this one.
Okay, see, you can flirt with it.
So, and I mean, it's a very simple thing. It's a string. It can just lay on the floor and nothing happens. But if we put intention on this specific tool, we can do so much. So I find this also very fascinating of, using a piece of nothing.
That's amazing, because when I was listening to you now in the past hour, and especially at the part of therapy, I thought there are two therapists. There's the how do you call yourself, masters of ropes?
No,
I wouldn't say master.
I'm surely not. I think the moment when people call you that, maybe you are, but it's the thing. You never call yourself the master. No, it is when the students or the people who appreciate it calling it. Yes. But I always feel it weird.
So that's the one therapist, and the rope is a therapist. I mean, the rope does so much. You just say like you're like out of nothing, but.
I actually like that what you said, because I thought a lot about it, because there's different styles. So there's already different styles, and there's a few styles which I like to call it by name, like Yukimura, which is a style which the rope technique is kind of nothing. It's really, you could learn this rope technique on 2 weekends, basically. It's very simplified. But what is hard is the intention you put into it, and how you take this minimalistic kind of approach to start reading your partner. There it is absolutely 90% about you and not about the rope, because the rope is just a small tool.
Okay.
People feel like, oh, you tied me so tight. No, this is just dissolves, but actually because I tied so tightly with my forearms and always put pressure on it, they felt like everything was massively tight. And then we have, for example, a Semenava session, which is more Akira Naka direction, which was comes from video shooting. So everything needs more time. But nowadays we do it like a build up. We go together, a journey, trying to climb the mountain. Let's see how far we come up there. And then we go back together down. It doesn't matter if it's a different route or the same route backwards. Let's see. But there I always found, if someone is really good, and I'm also good in this kind of style, but someone is equally good as me, and the model is blindfolded and probably cannot smell, I think it really doesn't matter if it's me or the other one, because it's a more self-experience tying, because it's more focused on the rope. The people are much more busy with themselves, with the rope. And there we have two really opposite poles of styles, and both come from Japan.
This is amazing, because this reminds me exactly what I experienced with you. I had actually two fights. One part was against you, and the other part was against the rope. So the rope was the problem, not you. And then there was another part where you were the problem. The rope was like just like, you know. And that's amazing to
yeah, and I also think, honestly, also, however I talk today and however critic I am, I think rope, and that is also what the Japanese people like to say, and I totally agree, rope is free. It doesn't really matter. The intention is important. Yeah. If the intention is malicious, or if the intention is very honorable, I think they don't mind if the session gets mixed with other practices. It's more like we Europeans are so driven by structures. It's usually horrible, and everything needs to be understood. How is this tie called? Why is this single column tie not this knot? In Japan they have one word for knots, and then the rest, and we have like 6. But they call it, everything is the same. Oh, musubini. And we're like, no, this is a square knot. Oh no, this is a granny knot. This is Somerville bowline, a reverse Somerville bowline. And then it gets like crazy. And what is now better? And then like, just understand the knot, understand the strength and the weakness, and you will be fine. Yeah, I think I'm more Japanese as I want to be.
Yeah, I feel it. We could go on for a long time, and I just want to open up the space also if there are any questions in the room, or did you all decide already to book sessions here? Wow.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy to teach people how to tie. I usually rarely do sessions. I mainly just live from teaching. I teach here in Switzerland, mainly in Basel. I teach in foreign countries, but this is my strength. Teaching, making people happy, giving them the skills that they can transmit that. Rarely I do sessions, but I kind of really also picky a bit with it, because I think to be honest, I think private session cost me more energy as 5 hours of teaching.
Okay, so you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I also mainly teach, or also I host retreats. I feel like retreat formats are again a little bit different than just, you know, like evening workshops, because you you guide a whole group through a journey where it's not just about teaching some cute knots, okay, now the rope goes here and then there, but it's more about the whole emotional journey. I mean, we also combine it with Tantra. So I feel like there's...
So you say, if you not combine it with Tantra, it cannot be emotion?
No. This is not what I wanted to say. But I
because
feel like,
we also do weekend workshops,
yeah,
just that you say.
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, if I just have like an evening workshop and it's like a beginner's class where it's really about how to do a single column tie, I feel like it's a lot less emotional than when we have a week-long retreat where we do tantric rituals and really long shibari sessions, and I feel like this is a different type.
But it's for you, because this is how you teach.
Yeah, probably.
Because you've never been to my...
I have not, and I'm really intrigued. I'm really intrigued. Yes.
I could just to say.
Yes.
No, because I think it's really interesting to see like different teaching approaches, and also retreats are great. And I think it's great that you organize stuff like this. I think it's very helpful for a lot of people, which also like it to have different point of views. With me, it's surely like, okay, emotions are important, but also the technique is very important. So let's combine that or put that in a scale so we can even it out. So I can also think like, if you tie in the other studio, I don't have to be like, I don't know this person, because I feel like the ground basics are solid. Because if I'm not giving them the basic very clean, they will fuck up eventually in the suspensions. And everyone goes eventually into suspensions, because that's human nature, I guess. It's like, I want to go up there.
Yeah, good. I see you take it serious.
I
you
guess
both,
so.
actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
You both, and you're very deep in this field. So, which is beautiful to see. It was really beautiful to watch the two of you and your heart and everything in there. And I'm like, it's kind of like, whoa, this is alive. There's something going on, and it's like processing this east into west, and to bring out this eastern essence also in the west without losing the west.
Yeah, I think it gets really big. It will grow even more massively.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, even now it's really reaching the mainstreams, or I mean, I think even just the last few years, I feel like it's been talked about so much more openly, or
You had the most online watchers from all SEXCAFÈ so far.
Oh, that feels good.
Yes.
I get something from that. No, it's the little things.
So this part now is for online. I stop it then. So thank you everybody for being here and watching.
Thank you.
And yes, we can sit here. You can go home and ask questions. Or yes.
That's nice.
Jam.
Danke dir. Ich hoffe, es ist spannend gewesen und nicht so aggressiv.
Mega spannend, ich bin
Ja, vielleicht fühlen sich jetzt die anderen Leute auch ein bisschen verwundert, wenn es noch zum Sagen.
Haben wir gerade noch Fragen?
Jetzt können wir noch Deutsch reden.
Ja, gell? German is good for everybody? Medium? We can stick with English, I guess.
Yeah, you put that in anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Jetzt bin ich los. Also der steht noch.